The information provided is for educational purposes and is not intended to diagnose or treat any conditions. The lifestyle interventions discussed should not be used as a substitute for conventional medical therapy.
Imagine if medicine actually looked at you as a whole, opposed to looking at you as a bunch of separate systems. Dive into Integrative Wellness Radio with Dr. Nick and Dr. Nicole to learn more about the top trends in integrative medicine, to learn about what the limitations are with testing and what you can do to start your health journey. Sometimes I tend to lose myself when I'm out here on my... Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Integrative Wellness Radio. I am Dr. Nicole and I am here with
Dr. Nick.
So we're excited to be back in the studio, and we've been compiling a list of different topics that we've wanted to talk about, but we've been very, very busy building the Institute for Integrative Wellness, which has been an amazing recent accomplishment. So definitely keep your eyes open for that teaching platform, which is really trying to revolutionize how healthcare is being done, starting with the health coaches, the nutritionists, the physicians, chiropractors, etc. But today we're here to really talk about a couple of different topics, but one of the primary ones that we want to talk about is you are not fat. You are toxic. And I think this is so important because right now we are heading into fall, and many of you have already started doing cleanses. You're doing some type of challenge at your gym. You're doing a cleanse. Maybe it's a juice cleanse. Maybe you're starving yourself. I don't know.
The whole 30.
Everybody's doing something a little bit different because of the massive guilt that they have after the summer months. But I think that one of the most important things to shed light on is that most of us are walking around thinking that we are carrying a lot of fat tissue. And don't get me wrong, some of us are, but a huge portion of those pounds that we see on the scale actually have to do with inflammation, which comes from toxicity. So we're here to really just uncover what does that even mean and where are these toxins coming from?
And also, what does it look like?
So tell us what it looks like, Dr. Nick.
So, it can look like many different forms. The first and foremost is going to see more in the lymphatic system. So it's like when you overall have just puffiness to your skin, that's just inflammation, first and foremost. Anytime you actually have cellulite, that's actually toxicity. That's infecting your fascia, so that creates those dimples within the skin, but it's really toxicity in your fascia system that's affecting your fascia system. But actually, I was having a conversation with a client earlier last week because they were literally doing the whole 30 and they were really hitting the gym hard. And I told them, I was like, very interestingly, I was like, as you guys are getting, towards the end of the program, look at the people that have lost a lot of weight, but they're still holding on to quote unquote these fat pockets, whether it's just right around the belly button. For females, it's very common to have it like inside of the knee and also on the side of the thighs. Yep. For male, it's more common in the belly, but it's because your body can't lose fat if it's toxic. So a lot of times, especially doing like a whole 30, very clean diet, no alcohol, all these things, they'll lose the weight, but they won't be able to lose the inflammation because you can't lose quote-unquote fat if the body's storing toxins in it. So you actually have to detox from the toxins first, then that fat will come off because your body's intelligent. It wants to put anything toxic into an area that's not going to affect something very important, which is your
function in general. Well, I think it's interesting just to clarify what you were saying before about what it looks like, because it does look different between men and women. And I always find it funny with the men that have the skinny arms and legs, but they have what everybody calls the quote unquote beer belly, right, even though maybe they don't drink beer. But that protrusion of the belly is really a backup in this system that is called the lymphatic system. The simplest way to explain the lymphatic system, it's just the master filter of the body. It's there to gobble up toxicity, infections, any type of foreign invaders, and to eradicate it out of the body by leveraging an immune reaction. So with that, when the lymph gets backed up, the example that I use consistently in the practice is it's like you have a vacuum. The vacuum could be brand new, but it has a filter. You keep using it, filter gets more and more full, and then it gets to the point that you really can't use the vacuum efficiently anymore. And it's a very similar concept when we say congestion or backup of the lymphatic system. Just think of it as a master filter, and now it's kind of at max capacity, and it's not really eradicating things out properly. So now everything is getting stored in the fat tissue. Or even,
and this is when we just take out the appendix, take out these things, get a new vacuum, right?
Yeah. Well, what Nick is saying is that parts of the lymphatic system that work with the lymphatic system is your tonsils, your spleen, and your appendix. And many people get their appendix removed. Many people get their tonsils removed. You can't really function well without a spleen. Technically, you can survive without it. But it is more rare that someone would have their spleen removed. But a lot of people are dealing with a lot of pain on their left rib cage, and that's where the spleen is, and they just think it's like indigestion, and it's actually an enlarged spleen. So yes, this is definitely something that a lot of people are dealing with, and it's the men with the skinny arms and legs, but the protruded belly, and then the females.
And it's firm. It's a hard belly.
Yes, definitely. And some women have it too. But then the females are the ones that are, saying that they have all of this weight in their buttocks and their thighs, and they look like you could put a pin in them and they're almost going to pop. And it's because the inflammation is causing so much retention of fluid that it's almost like the skin is getting tight. Some women experience this all the time. They constantly look in the mirror and be like, oh my gosh, I look like I'm going to pop. And then there's other women that get on a plane and they have really bad water retention in their ankles. So even if you just have it when you fly, there's still a problem that's there. But because your body is resilient, it's ebbing and flowing. So you're not having consistent issues. But if you're the person, if you weigh yourself on a daily basis and you fluctuate anywhere between 2 to let alone 5 pounds a day, that is inflammation. That is not fat.
So what are the most common, would you say, toxins? Does infections fall on that route too? Mm-hmm. What's really caused this for most people?
So really the sky's the limit at this point. Unfortunately, I actually just came off of last month doing a webinar series about toxicity, and I could barely scratch the surface on what I talked about, and I had to break it down from toxins that we were being exposed to from our personal products. I broke it down into heavy metal toxicity, toxins we're getting exposed to from farming and the food industry, and then there's toxins that come from medications that we're taking as well. So there is so many avenues that we're being exposed, but as we proceed with the conversation, what I want people to understand is that this is not about living in a bubble. And I think that, we have this conversation all the time with patients as they start to think like they get angry, same as us. We got angry when we learned about all this, and then we were like, well, what the hell do you do? I can't even do this. I can't go out. I can't have a glass of wine. And you're just
have a glass of water.
You just start panicking about everything. And then what you realize is that it kind of goes back to that conversation about the lymphatic system being a filter. And it's not just that, it's also our liver, our gut is a filter, our kidneys are a filter. And when all the filters get maxed out, that is when we're just not getting rid of these things that we're being exposed to like we used to. And this is when we start, we first of all, we call it aging. People go, oh, well, I used to have a glass of wine and I feel fine the next day. Now I'm hungover for 3 days. And that's not aging. That is literally your liver cannot metabolize the alcohol anymore. And it's because your liver is not just filtering out alcohol, it's filtering out pesticides and herbicides and heavy metals and all of these things that we're getting exposed to.
Well, it's the compounding effect because we haven't, quote unquote, cleaned or got a new, quote unquote, vacuum.
New filter.
New vacuum filter, yeah.
Well, and two, it's interesting because in even the world of functional medicine, we tend to look primarily at heavy metals. And there's not many physicians that are looking beyond heavy metals. So we're kind of assuming that heavy metals like mercury and aluminum and cadmium, those are some of the primary toxins that people are being exposed to. And yes, they are definitely part of the puzzle, but there's so much more than that. But even talking about heavy metals, one of the primary ways we get exposed is literally from our drinking water. Dental work. So everybody decided to get their silver fillings out because we heard those were bad because they were contaminated with mercury. So now we all get white fillings. White fillings not only contain cadmium, which is another harmful heavy metal, but they also contain time-released fluoride. So they time-release fluoride actually over a lifetime.
I actually did not know that.
Yes, I learned that a couple of weeks ago from a dentist that I spoke to. And pretty much she said that most dentists, even if they are holistic, are opting for those unless you're going to a biological dentist.
That's crazy.
Everything from the sealants to composites to even braces, they all contain different types of heavy metals, palladium as well as nickel being the primaries. So when when you are wearing crappy jewelry and it turns your skin a color, that's probably because you have a nickel allergy. And that very much can come from braces and the permanent retainer that they put behind your teeth. Yeah. I love when Nick learns something new.
My brain's going crazy right now. So for most people that don't realize, most of these heavy metals, fluoride, mercury, aluminum, they're not only just toxins, but they're neurotoxins. So they're really a specific toxicity that's creating lots of havoc to your nervous system. So your brain fog,
memory loss,
neurological disorders, diseases.
Well, unfortunately, too, is we've had this situation come through our doors a few times that someone, as an older individual, had a good portion of their silver fillings swapped out to be replaced with the white. And their lymphatic system, all the lymph nodes in their neck were already compromised. They were not filtering properly. They also were older and their immune system wasn't as resilient, and they were removed improperly. And they literally went in and cracked the fillings, popped them out, released a ton of mercury vapor. And 2 patients, different scenarios, but both massive neurological issues. One had the onset of Parkinson's 2 months after the procedure. The other one had the onset of multiple sclerosis 6 months after. So these things are very serious, and we need to be aware of it, because even if you want to get silver fillings removed and replaced, you have to make sure that your body is ready for that. And you also have to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to find a dentist who's going to do it properly.
Can I piggyback off of what you just said there before?
Go for it.
So I'd just like to point out, so it's those 2 clients, they were, I guess, pre-framed into getting these neurological diseases, and understanding that all neurological diseases, or pretty much every single disease, is really just a description of symptoms.
Yeah.
So the unfortunate thing is that so many people today are getting treated for their symptoms instead of actually going through and all right, what was the causation of causing these symptoms, and be able to, quote unquote, go up, clear up that mess, and then allowing the effect to be actually getting your life back and being healthy.
Yeah, well, that's actually 2 of the podcasts we're going to be recording after this one, is talking about how bad vision is equivalent to having a bad brain, and then also the connection with testosterone levels and Parkinson's. So, but what you're going to find interesting about those 2 podcasts is they are going to have a very similar foundation, because when you look at the physiology of what the brain needs and what the brain needs to detox, those are the systems that have to be looked at in the event that you're diagnosed with anything. If it's Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, it's where's the kink in the chain? What's happening? Is there toxicity? Can the brain not detox? Is there poor blood flow? So it's very important that a physician is looking at all of those aspects and not just looking at you as a neurological case, but looking beyond. But back to our toxicity. So some of the other toxins that unfortunately all of us are going to be presenting with at this point in time is pesticides and herbicides. This is something that, we're living in this world that there is organic and there's conventional and there's genetically modified, and people are just I don't even know what is what and can I trust it, and does it really matter? You know, there's the clean 15 and the dirty dozen, and, you know, there's a lot of misinformation. But one thing that is a common denominator is most of the produce in the US is being sprayed with Roundup. Yes, the same thing that you spray to kill your weeds in your yard. Roundup is extremely toxic and now has actually been proven, not my opinion, been proven to be one of the biggest causes of celiac disease, which if you look at those statistics are on the rise.
Yeah, I forget the exact cases, but they were actually sued, and they lost. Roundup lost. Now, actually, I think it's Bayer that owns it.
Yeah. They sold to Monsanto sold to Bayer.
Yeah. But they've lost a couple cases, like huge cases. I think they were all actually neurological diseases that came on.
I think there were a couple of cancer-based cases as well.
Yeah.
But pretty much at the end of the day, the primary ingredient in the Roundup is called glyphosate. And glyphosate is what they've actually linked to a lot of these diseases. But in addition to that, if you are being exposed to glyphosate, that's one thing. Glyphosate on its own actually resides in some of the genetically modified foods. But if you're eating conventional produce, you're not just getting the glyphosate, you're also getting exposure to the full-on Roundup. And full-on Roundup also contains surfactant. And one of the surfactants, think of it as soap. So it literally strips your gut of all good bacteria and all good microorganisms. So if you don't have any of the good, you are a brewing ground for the bad. And what people don't understand too is your vegetables are grown in the dirt. They're grown with bugs on them. They're dirty. They have bacteria. It's just normal. But if you're stripped of all the good, you now become more susceptible to just the average E. coli that's on your kale. I'm not advocating to not eat kale, guys. Some people are going to listen and be like, okay, I'll never eat vegetables again. Thank you for making sure that I don't. You know that people are thinking that.
That'd be my dad.
I know. Totally. I thought of him as I'm saying it.
He's like, Nicole said not to eat kale.
So the point is that there is a lot of different chemicals that are on the food alone. And then in addition to that, you know, one of the big things that we work with in our practice is mold toxicity. And I remember in the very beginning stages, and you know, as I was like nose deep into all of the research about mold and doing all these trainings and being like, oh, this is the missing piece for so many people. And then you know, time goes by and you realize, everybody has mold toxicity. And what I didn't realize, it took time for me to piece the puzzle together, was that there's tons of mold on our food. There's mold that we were passing by. We go to this field with the dogs, and Nick is from Iowa, where they grow all the corn. But we're passing by and there's all this corn, and I was like, wow, I'm surprised they're not harvesting the corn. It's moldy and it looks like it's going bad. And he just looks at me and he's like, no, they'll harvest it. They'll grind it up and feed it to animals. And I was like, sucks. Just like so unbelievably disappointed, because this is the reality of it though. So not only are most of our grains like wheat, corn, soy, quinoa, rice, like they're all crops that are very susceptible to fungus in the first place. Then on top of it, we might be going out of our way to buy good quality produce, but then maybe the animals that we're eating were fed fungus-ridden corn or crops. So again, I'm not, my intention is not to make you guys live in fear of the food industry, but it's definitely understanding that your choices are important. I think that a lot of us want to go the convenience route and just, you know, be like, I don't have time to think about my food, but this is one of the reasons why we're in an epidemic of chronic illness.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that I think the takeaway from understanding all this is to not be in fear, but to know that you have the power to be able to keep your body in a sustainable, really foundational place, so that it will never succumb to being sick, or will never come to getting a disease, because you're always literally making sure that your detox systems are really functioning properly, so you don't have to be stressed and worry and live in fear about all the chaos that's happening outside of us.
Well, and also too though, is we can make these great lifestyle changes, But sometimes for some of you that are listening to this podcast is you might need to actually have some type of strategy or support to get the bad stuff out that is already built up. And you're going to just changing your diet or doing juice for 7 days straight is not necessarily going to amplify your detoxification. Sometimes you have to use things that are more aggressive protocols, like different types of supplements, binders, heavy metal chelators, things like that. So that's really when better testing, gives you better information about your body, so that you're not the person that's yo-yo dieting and you're just so frustrated and overwhelmed because you constantly think that it's a dietary issue when in reality it's a toxicity issue. So this is definitely something important to take away, because I literally had this conversation just the other day. Is this patient is just like, she has so much guilt around trying and giving up and trying and giving up, and so much guilt around the fact that she can't not eat the sugar. And I just tried to explain to her, I'm like, first of all, number one is you have so much going on in your gut that your body's almost hijacked right now. Like, your blood sugar is so unstable that when you drop into a low blood sugar, your body intuitively is craving sugar in order to boost your sugar levels up, because if your blood sugar is bottomed out, that's going to affect your brain. I was like, so part of what you're experiencing is not really in your control. I go, but secondarily, you're trying to fix a toxicity problem by cutting out certain foods, and then you're not getting anywhere and you're getting frustrated, and then you're feeling depressed about it. So it's like this vicious cycle that so many people go through, and they just don't understand that there is something foundational happening that needs to be addressed in a different way.
Yeah, and then with that, it's just understanding that you support two different pathways at the same time. It's like most people think they're just going to work on detox, and like you said, like a juice cleanse might not be the best for everybody, because it's going to be high in sugar for the most part, but at the same time there's no fiber with it, so you're really not getting that part of the cleansing aspect that the lymphatic system really, really needs.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a really good point for you to say, is that detoxing has to be extremely strategic. And when you were talking earlier about the fat tissue, I wrote an article a while back for Mind Body Green, and one of the articles that I wrote was specifically about the keto flu. And it was for people that shift into a ketogenic diet and they get sick. And there's all of this information out there of what causes the keto flu. And it was, they loved my article because it was a completely different perspective. And really my perspective on it is, if you start to go into a fat burning state because you go hardcore keto and all of your toxins live in your fat tissue, you're mobilizing all of these toxins at a rapid rate, and that's what makes you sick. So it's not always about going hardcore anything, but it's trying to be really, really strategic and making sure that you have proper supplementation in the mix. So like what you just said is, you do juice, you amp up all these antioxidants, you do get sugar, but the fact that you have no soluble fiber doesn't keep your blood sugar stable. Also, soluble fiber is the primary thing that helps to bind the toxins to mobilize them out through your gut. So it's really trying to know that you can do it in the right way, so you don't feel miserable, number one. And number two is, if you do it in the right way, you can actually create changes that are sustainable, opposed to, I feel so good on these couple of days, and then you literally, you spiral out of control after you're done. So, and I think one mindset component is that don't do a cleanse to go back to be like, I can't wait until day 8 and I can't wait to go to McDonald's. Like that, just don't even do a cleanse. Just don't. It's like totally defeats the purpose. And you don't detox in 7 days anyway. So they, one of the cleanses that we actually do at the office, we're actually kicking it off soon, is it's a 21-day cleanse. And I'll let you elaborate on why it's 21 days.
Well, 21 days foundationally, with anything, you want to reset the mind. The mind is the most beneficial aspect that we have towards healing. And they found about 3 weeks, 21 days is that what really takes to create a sustainable mind shift. So with the program, there's amazing supplements and amazing shakes, and the shakes has tons of different
soluble fiber.
Well, soluble fiber, cruciferous vegetables to get that soluble fiber. But really understanding that it's retraining your mind to be able to eat in a conscious way to serve your body instead of really eating to serve your mind or to serve your emotions.
Stop eating for your feelings. I always ask that question when patients come in and they're like, I have to tell you, I did this. And I'm like, did you do it for you or did you do it for your feelings? And they're like, for my feelings. I'm like, okay, let's not do that again.
Go see Dr. Nick.
Go see Dr. Nick. No, I think it's I guess I should say too, for me personally, I have not been able to do many cleanses successfully because I always felt like they were so polarized. Like doing a juice cleanse was absolute like torture for me. And then like just crazy restrictive eating was torture to me. But when I did the 21-day cleanse, it was a really nice balance. And what's interesting too is the first time that I ever did the 21-day cleanse, I focused more on the shakes because you get a powder, and this powder, like Nick said, it's actually all geared towards liver and gut detoxification because all of the properties in the powder detox those two systems specifically. The first time I focused doing it in a smoothie, which was fine, but the second time around, we actually did it, put the powder into soups.
It was delicious.
And that was personally my favorite. So what's kind of nice is depending if you like hot or cold, you can kind of do either one. But in the first 3 days, you're focusing specifically on that, doing either the soups or the smoothies with those powders, and then you start to incorporate more of like a plant-based diet, still using the smoothies or the soups, and then you move into lean proteins. So what's great about it is our team like teaches you about, how to eat, what to eat. We give you recipes. You're not starving. It's really balanced, and you're also achieving a bigger goal because you're taking certain supplements and you're using these shake powders, which are detoxing the liver, the gut, a little bit with the lymphatic system, and then it's also really helping to support the kidneys.
The kidneys, but also the blood.
And the blood. But I say a little bit with the lymph because there really is no master supplement or diet change to get the lymph working. So some of our cleansers will actually pair their cleanse with infrared sauna and detoxification foot baths in our office, and that gives them the lymphatic support. So it's funny because I always say men are freaks when they do our cleanse because literally I think we had one guy, he was only halfway through and he lost like 22 pounds.
Yeah, I think he ended up like 36, 37 pounds.
Which is crazy. I know that's like in 21 days, that sounds crazy, but this was also a guy that high stress, lawyer, drank, I think he said like 8 sodas a day, coffee, tons of sugar, fast food. So he made like a radical change, but it just shows you the sugar, the soda, the fast food, like all those things were causing tons of inflammation in his body. So that was like a remarkable change. But, being able to see your energy come back, your brain fog lift, and just to like feel that decrease in that inflammation, like not feel like you're going to literally pop it's just like people are like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even know it was possible because I've been yo-yo dieting for so many years.
In 21 days, it's pretty easy when you think about it.
Yeah. So really to sum up today's conversation is stop thinking that you need to go on crazy elimination diets, Weight Watchers, and everything else. Because
no detoxing to retoxing.
No detoxing to retoxing. But being able to understand that if your weight is yo-yoing every day, this is an inflammatory process that's happening, and this very much has to do with toxicity. And if you think that you're not part of this toxicity conversation, you're wrong because you're all using different personal products that have toxins. We didn't even go there. Personal products have toxins. Literally, the food has toxins. The tap water has toxins. Everything has toxins. but we need to just know that it's not about living in a bubble. It's about, knowing which systems need the most support and leveraging the expertise of someone who can help you in that process.
Support yourself.
I love how Nick always has to end with something weird.
Something crazy.
Well, guys, check out the link below if you want to learn a little bit more about our 21-day cleanse. It is coming up. It's going to be held by our nutritionist and our health coach, but lots of amazing resources, and it's definitely a great jumpstart to just getting healthier overall. So check it out, and we will see you next week. We thank you for being a listener and subscriber to Integrative Wellness Radio. If you're looking to learn more about Integrative Wellness Group as well as Dr. Nick or Dr. Nicole, you can check out integrativewellnessgroup.com.